Okay guys, so here's what I decided to do. I'm gonna make a little video just showing you guys how to make these patterns, and I thought that maybe give a little bit of incentive if you need it. Now you can see I already made this pattern, but all I did, now I added a piece on here, all I did was take green tape and start throwing it on top of this piece. Okay, all I did was put the green tape over top of this whole piece, and then I took the nylon strapping tape, that's the clear stuff with the lines in it. Don't use postal tape because that won't keep its shape. And I covered this whole piece and put the strapping tape on it, and what I ended up with then was basically this. Now I had to add this little piece here because of the frames in the way, to just straighten that out. And also this is rusted down in here on both sides, so I don't know if you can see that in there, but it's rusted pretty bad. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll leave the legs lay out a little bit better, a little longer when I go to use this. Now this thing has a nice shape to it. It shows me where the bends are, you know what I mean? And it certainly is going to give me the right size. So what I do is after I do that, now just let me get this camera set up a little bit here. Okay, so after I do that, then I get myself a piece of steel, try not to waste it. This is the size piece I need to actually do this. And I take alcohol, which I've told you before, this denatured alcohol, and I just clean off the area that I'm going to work with so that the tape sticks to it. Not the tape from the pattern, but the tape and stuff that I'm going to use and markers to mark this thing off a little bit. So this helps it stick a lot better. Doesn't give me any grief. And the alcohol dries right away as well. Okay, so basically once that's dry and cleaned up, then I'll take the pattern and I'll lay the pattern in place. Trying to lay in such a way that I do the least amount of cutting. Now these legs, because of the rust and stuff, the leg, especially on this side, didn't come out as good. It came out to what it has there. It's not as good as it should be. But what I want to do is leave the legs a little bit longer here where they attach, just in case I need a little extra steel or something. So I'm going to basically go with that. Now you can, if you have somebody to help you, you can actually they can hold the pattern down. If not, let me grab a marker. If not, what I do is just mark around this. Now you want to flatten the pattern out pretty much as you do this. So I'm going to be coming down to the end of this thing, so I'm basically just going to pull this all the way up through here. Okay? I'm going to lay this flat so I get the full size of the pattern. I'm going to push it flat. Let me put a mark here so I know where that thing has to stay. And this is going to give me a general shape, and I'm going to come out here a little bit, of the size, I think I'll come out a little more, of the size of the pattern. Okay? So that's what I have there. So what I'll do is I'll cut this out, and like I told you before, I use a grinder to do my cutting, or one of those little thin wheels. I'll cut this out, and there's two major bends in this thing. You basically have this bend, let's see, this goes against the frame like this. You basically have this bend that runs around and this bend, but then you have this little flange that runs around which helps to strengthen this. The nice thing is that the flange actually lines up with where the bolt hole would go. You can see that raised part there is where a bolt was. So what's nice about that is that it makes the flange easier, that you don't have to change position anywhere. So this piece, to hammer this out, isn't going to be that hard. You know, you can't don't look at the whole thing, because if you look at the whole thing as how am I going to make that, it becomes difficult. But if you realize that the shape it had, like that, is now flat, it doesn't seem so hard to make. So basically what I'm going to do first is, after I cut it out, I'm going to hammer this edge around there. Now hammering that edge is going to give me some shape to this thing. It'll start to, you'll see that it'll actually start to form itself. And then what I'll do is I'll put this bend in it, down here, this long bend. I'll probably end up with a little bit of a crease here because I'm not stamping this thing. And 11 gauge, the shrinker stretcher I have isn't big enough for 11 gauge. It's only for body panels. So I'll probably have to work with that a little bit, but you can shrink it by, well, I'll show you how to do that later, but you can shrink metal by just driving a point into it. And what it does is it pulls the metal towards the point. And then cutting this out or drilling bolt holes is a piece of cake. There's really nothing to that. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll try and get the video to the point where after I cut this out and I start hammering this out, I'll start to make the other video. Got to remember which way this is. Oh no, this is the bottom for the one I'm working on. Okay, so that's the start of this. And like I say, if you look at it as, it's already bent, oh man, that looks like it's going to be hard to make. But in reality, you lay it down, there's no more bends there. So you got to figure out which bends are going to affect the piece the most. And that's this bend, especially on a radius. That's going to affect this piece the most. So that's the bend you want to put in first. And then after that, you'll put in this bend and the bend that comes right in here down towards the other panel, and then, or towards the frame. So like I say, it's not nearly as hard as it looks, when you're looking at the panel. Now, you also have to know how hard to hit the metal and stuff. I know when I first started it, the first piece of metal I ever started driving, I used a tin can from a soup can just to try and shape that. That thing I had so bent up and screwed up, I was so frustrated I just threw it in the trash. But then little by little, I realized that if I don't learn to do it, I'm not going to be able to do it. So little by little I just took my time and went after it. So, like I say, this is not a big deal. This thing actually lays on the frame like that. That's why this one leg is so long. The shock comes down and mounts, on an angle to this. So, alright, well anyway, that's it for showing you that part. And when I start to hammer it out and cut it, I'll come back.